Hello, tiny people. I'm so sorry I can't be with you there at the start of the school year, but here we go. I'll be in there in just a couple of days. Hmm. I suppose you're wondering now exactly why you're here. Well, that's an important question. I mean, think about it. You could be running off in the fields or swimming in a river or, I don't know, standing on your head spitting wooden nickels, but instead you're in history class. So let's figure this out. Why are you here? You should each stop and think for a moment. I'm sure some of you will say for the ability to get a college education, for a good education, so you can get a job because mom and dad forced you. Those are all fine answers, but really that's not the most important one. We're going to get along very well if you understand from the start that the reason you're in United States history class is for my entertainment. So let's get on with it. Years ago, when I worked at a 7-Eleven, yeah, a little convenience store right after college, I applied for a job and it was slow coming with the state of South Carolina. And so I said, well, you know what? I get bored really fast. I need something to do. So just 2 days later, I walked down to the corner 7-Eleven and said, hey, put me to work. So by the time I got the job offer in South Carolina, I was managing a couple of convenience stores and I was making a lot more money than the state of South Carolina offered me. As a result, I stayed there for a little bit, and doggone, one night I was working and resetting the candy aisle. So I put all this stuff together and reworked where the Hershey bars went and where this went. And a friend of mine came in. Now, this is down in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. And this guy was a plumber and he'd been working overnight also on an emergency plumbing emergency. And he said, hey, Jim, you want to go out and get some breakfast? And I said, sure. And he said, let's go on down to the Shoney's. And the Shoney's is like a big boy, kind of like a Denny's, what we have up here. So we went down to the Shoney's, and sure enough, there was a waitress came along, nice, friendly, large lady. She came around and she said, "Mip you." Now, I went to college in South Carolina. I'm pretty good at speaking Southern, but I didn't have any idea what she said. So she looked at me again and said, "Mip you." I had to turn to my friend and I said, help me out here. And he laughed and he said, you Yankees. She said, may I help you? Mep you. So I said, oh, yeah. And I gave her my order. And then she turned over to him and gave her a nice smile. And she said, Mep you? And he said, sure, shipwreck, 2 pair of shingles, Georgia, ice cream, cup of Joe, hold the clouds. And then she wrote it down and walked away. And I said, well, my friend, now I don't have any idea what you said. He said, I said, shipwreck, 2 pair of shingles, Georgia, ice cream, cup of Joe, hold the clouds. Well, what does that mean? Can you guys figure out what that means? If we were in class together, I'd give you a few minutes, but I don't know who's going to work on this and who isn't. So let me explain it to you. Shipwreck to. When you get in a shipwreck, things get kind of messed up. They sort of get scrambled. So shipwreck to was 2 scrambled eggs. Pair of shingles. Now, what is it that people have for breakfast that looks kind of flat like a roof shingle? Now, it's not a pancake or a waffle, although those would be good guesses. It's 2 pieces of toast, a pair of shingles. Georgia ice cream, I'm not sure if you'd know or not. Depends on if you've been down to the South and also if probably one of your parents would ever let you try this. Georgia ice cream is grits. And then a cup of Joe. Anybody know what a cup of Joe is? A cup of Joe is coffee. And hold the clouds means don't put any cream in it, black coffee. So let's suppose you like this story and you wanted to tell it to your mother later on today. And you wrote down exactly what I'd given you for notes, because I will give you some notes. If I was in school today, I would have written this on the board. Now, frankly, something like this would not be important. I wouldn't want you to write it down. That's part of what we're going to study in taking notes. But suppose you did want to remember this tonight. You might be able to. You might be able to say, yeah, it was scrambled eggs and Now you get it wrong. You say, hey, I think it was pancakes or like shingles. And then Georgia ice cream was oatmeal. And a cup of Joe was coffee. Hold the clouds means no cream. Well, you got it sort of kind of right because all you did was copy down my notes. How about changing my notes into your notes? What I wrote on the board, shipwreck to, maybe above it in small letters, you needed to write down scrambled eggs. And a pair of shingles, maybe you needed to write down above it, again, small letters, 2 pieces of toast. Georgia ice cream, grits, same thing, cup of Joe, coffee, hold the clouds, no cream. Now you've changed my notes into your notes. My notes will always be available to you. And this morning I sent them to you via Google Classroom, which I'll do until I'm back in the classroom. But that's not enough. It's enough for me to remember what happened then, because that's my life and my memory. I remember what my friend the plumber looked like. I remember the 7-Eleven. I remember the Shoney's. I remember looking out the window and seeing the bay. It's right over near Patriots Point, if you've ever been there in Charleston, with a big aircraft carriers you can tour. I remember everything, the color of the seats, the color of the waitress's uniform. I have that all in my head, so it takes very little in the way of notes for me to remember the story. I could have written much less than this. But for you to remember it tonight, maybe you get away with it. Maybe you'd remember most of it tomorrow. Maybe, possibly. But a week from now, if you had a test, very, very doubtful. So you need to make sure you have enough notes put together so that you remember what is all the information so you can study for a test. I sent you a copy of my notes in Google Classroom, as I said. You should have those available as you listen. You can open up a second tab and go back and forth. If the teacher today is projecting it off of the smartboard, that's even better. You could keep yours open. But those are my notes. Now, here's a killer. You have to write the notes. Don't try to type them on the computer. I do not accept that. That's not a good idea. Study after study has shown that if a person writes down the words, they're thinking about them, they send that little information all the way down to their fingertips and write it into a notebook, they have far better retention of that information than they would if they tried to type it into a computer. Tests come from notes. So you make sure that you have a great set of notes, and I will be checking those from time to time. I will look at your notebook, and I've not done this before, but there's going to be some kind of a grade attached this year because we've got a few things that are going to be different. I need to know that you're taking good notes. And please, I'm going to tell you right from day one, feel free to compare notes. Do not, under any circumstances, fail to take your own notes and just think you're going to copy later. Don't just write mine down and think you'll copy more details later. No, you need to be taking notes in class. And this is huge. This is really big. I want you to look at other people's notes afterwards and see if what you filled in is about the same as what they did. And if you see that they filled in something silly, like a story I told about one of my sisters, tell them that. That's not testable material. If they see that you did the same sort of thing, they should tell you as you compare notebooks. And another thing, if you have a friend who is your lifelong friend who has never received a grade higher than 3 at anything at Brookfield Academy, that's probably not the person from whom you want to check your notes. Get someone that you know takes good notes. Hey, people with good notes, it's a great chance to compare with other people's. You never know who's got more detail, different detail, or written in a better way than you. So let's get to it and do some notes. Interestingly enough, Arturo went to the airport and saw a plane take off. This is what he saw. This is crazy. Do you realize at exactly the same second, Mary Lee was at the same airport watching the same plane take off? No, it's crazy. At the same time, Jaden was also there. And he saw the same plane take off. Wait a minute. We have the same event, three people, Arturo, Marilee, and Jalen, all at the same airport at the same time, seeing the same plane take off, yet they took very different memories back from that. They saw different things. Could Jalen see which airplane it was? Remember, he was behind, or which airline it was? He was behind it. He couldn't see the words written on the side. Could Arturo tell if there was a pilot and a co-pilot? He could see the side. He could tell you which airline it was, but he couldn't see the front. So he couldn't see the two windows. And could Marilee, who was up in front and could see if there was a pilot or a co-pilot, could she tell you if the engines were both going or all going? No, she couldn't see any kind of a jet stream. Jalen could. He was behind it. So since people see the same event at the same time, why didn't they see the same thing? For our purposes, we are going to call that frame of reference. Frame of reference. Frame of reference refers to people seeing the same event differently based on where they are. People seeing the same event differently based on where they are. Frame of reference, people seeing the same event based on where they are. Whoa, hold the phone. Watch for clues when you're note taking throughout the year. Say, for example, if I do something like I just did, I repeated that definition and that term 3 times slowly to make sure students could write it down. Frame of reference, for our purposes, refers to people seeing the same event differently based on where they are. Well, how does that affect history? Let's go back to December of 1862 and suppose you are a Confederate private. You're a little nobody. The Confederate line is behind a stone wall. On the left side, it's kind of open countryside, but they've dug up ditches on the right side of the Confederate line. You are a Confederate private way down on the right side. And over the course of the day, and the Battle of Fredericksburg was a big battle. Over the course of the day, you have a troop of Union cavalry, 100 guys come at you once or twice, and they shoot a little bit, and you shoot back a little bit, and well, one of your friends gets that little hanging down part of his ear shot off, and another guy gets shot in the shoulder, and you think you might even have hit a couple of the Union guys riding towards you. And you scream your rebel yell, and you think good things, and that's your battle. Now let's suppose you're on the left side of the line at a place called Marie's Heights. You're behind this stone wall. You're there with your friends. You're fairly well protected. There's a big open field in front of you. And for some reason, known only to God and Union General Ambrose Burnside, the commander, he decides to attack your position 14 times. And your position over there is the strongest place in the Confederate line. And the Union Army never even gets close, but they keep coming. Tens of thousands of men running toward you across an open field. Now, at the height of the battle, you have been shooting for hours. You have seen a few of your friends killed and wounded. The field out in front of you is filled with fallen blue uniformed soldiers who are dead or dying. Your feet might be wet because there's blood on the ground. And you're deaf because the sound of the cannons and the guns has been so loud for so long that you won't recover your hearing for days. So it's quite a different battle. Both soldiers were at the same battle, the Battle of Fredericksburg, but what they saw was so incredibly different. That's why frame of reference is so important. All right, let me ask you this. What language am I speaking? Now listen carefully. Wanneer April with Shura Suta, the drukt of March het persen to the route and bader every vein and swish liqueur of Ishvertun Grender is the floor. Take a guess. Take a guess. Let me say it again. Wanneer April with Shura Suta, the drukt of March het persen to the route and bader every vein and swish liqueur of Ishvertun Grender is the floor. Wow. Usually I get answers of Russian, German, something odd like Bolivian. You know what that is? It's English. It's Middle English from a book called The Canterbury Tales by a man named Geoffrey Chaucer, who, if we can believe that picture, was bigger than his horse. But let's take a look at the first few lines. Wan that April with a shura suta. When in April, when the showers started, the drukt of March hath pierced to the ruta. The drought of March is pierced to the root, and bathed every vein in swish liqueur, and bathed every vine in the sweet liqueur. It's April, and it started to rain. Now, wait a minute. That's English. That's English the way it was written and it was spoken a few hundred years ago. If that is the same language we speak today, and look at the way it has evolved and changed, imagine how other things have evolved and changed. When you study history, you can't say to yourself, hey, everything needs to be the same. That's what should happen. Let's look, for example, at another little set of circumstances. We've discovered this, people see things differently when they're in different places. So Mr. Holman and Claire Tien go to a high school football game together. And literally, she sits next to me. We are pressed cheek to cheek watching this game. So our eyes are as close to being in exactly the same place. Matter of fact, our foreheads are taped together so that we move, we both see the same things. Will we see exactly the same things if we sit in exactly the same spot? Why? Yes, in this class, you are required to think. But where is the answer? What can I memorize? Sorry, it doesn't work that way. Will we see the same things? The answer is no. Let's do a little comparison. Mr. Holman's a man. Claire Tien's a girl. That brings up age too. She's 12. I'm 63. That's more than 5 times as old. Ethnicity. She's got some Asian background. I'm a Luxembourger. Woo! Bet you never met one of those before. Then, taste. That could be anything from colors to spicy food to whatever. What's you individually? What do you like? What do you dislike? What do you find obnoxious? What do you find fantastic? Physical attributes. I would have no trouble reaching up and grabbing that ship that's on top of the cupboard in my classroom. But I don't think Claire can do that. Education. I've been to college and taken several courses afterwards. I've read far more books than Claire has. Experienced. I've managed stores and taught for 30 years. I've been in the restaurant business and the retail business. I've walked from Mobile, Alabama to Milwaukee and canoed the Mississippi River and bicycled across country and motorcycled across country. I went to a military college and I played high school football. So if I'm watching a high school football game, I understand what that feels like. I have a better grasp of the rules because of the experience I've had. If we went to, I don't know, a field hockey game, a volleyball game, playing golf, whatever it is that Claire does, play piano, I don't know. It's things that I don't do that she does, the roles would be reversed as to we'd still see different things. Religion. Now, this is just generalized to anybody. If somebody is a Muslim and someone else comes in and says, hey, 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 the bacon's ready. You want some bacon? Well, Muslims and Jewish people would say, no, that's not good. We're not supposed to eat that. A Lutheran or Catholic would go, hey, 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 bacon. Yeah. All right. So religion changes things. Talents. Do you have good balance? Do you have a mathematical ability, just an innate mathematical ability? Are you a math science person or are you a letters, history kind of a person? Those things change the way people look at things. And how about family? Are you an only child? Are your parents together? Do you have 16 siblings? When you get together as a family, are there 125 of you? So that's all important. Is your family near you? Is your family on the other side of the world? These are all huge in determining who we are, and who we are determines how we see things. We're calling that one point of view, POV, point of view. One more time, POV, point of view. And that is people see things differently based on who they are. POV, point of view. People see things differently based on who they are. When we study history, we need to take off our blinders. You know what blinders are. See these little tabs up along the side of a horse's head? The reason someone puts blinders on a horse is so the horse won't be distracted by anything on the sides. It can only see in one direction, just straight ahead. That's the way people are. You, when you sit at home, think, I know the way all 12-year-old girls or boys are supposed to think because I'm a 12-year-old girl or boy. Hey, I mean, I look at this. I know what breakfast is like. I know what clothes are to be worn. I know what are cool songs. I know what are the great books. I just know 12-year-old. I get that. That may be true here. That may be a Brookfield Academy truism. Is it a downtown truism? Probably not. Is it true in Bangladesh? Probably not. Is it true in China? Probably not. Those are all different things. So take off your blinders and realize some things about further on back in history. And that is, don't expect people to feel like you do in ages past. Don't expect them to think like you do. Don't expect them to react like you do. Don't expect them to have empathy like you do. Don't expect them to care about anything like you do. We're going to have 3 themes this year. For our purpose, a theme is something which has motivated people throughout history to act. Now, motivated something to act. Let me explain to you. Suppose that one of you guys has $10. All right, having $10 doesn't make you act. That's not an action. If you spend the $10, that's an action, but you haven't been motivated by the money. You had the money, you spent it. Now, if Mrs. Sullivan says, hey, I'll give you $10 to babysit my kids for an hour, and you agree to babysit, that is being motivated to action by the money. That would be something that would fill our purposes. All right, let's take a look at our 3 themes. The first one is power. And our definition there is the ability to take what one wants or to keep what one has. Ooh, what Bone has. Sorry, get rid of Bone there. That's what one has. The ability to take what one wants or to keep what one has. In other words, I could walk over to one of the desks and simply take a pencil pouch. And there's 275 pounds of me, and there's not 275 pounds of any of you. So I have power, I get to take it. Oh, unless one of you happens to be like a kung fu legend, stands up and jumps up and kicks me in the nose and chops me in the neck and takes their pencil case back, then you would have power. There are 2 legitimate sources of power in the United States. Now, this is huge. Remember what I said, 2 legitimate. Legitimate means lawful, good, proper. The first one is wealth. There have been some people that are pretty fabulously wealthy. I'm sure you guys are all aware of, like, Jeff Bezos. He's got a lot of money. Money, 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 money. Oh, incidentally, from now on throughout the entire year, when I say money, 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 you must say money. Let's try it. Money, money, money. I hope you did well. Anyway, let's look at John D. Rockefeller. Started Standard Oil right when people started to need gas and oil. And guess what? It is estimated that 1 out of every $16 spent in the United States went through John D. Rockefeller's pockets. That's rich. Sam Walton, the guy who invented Walmart, yeah. When he was alive, he's been dead for some years. When he was alive, the richest man in the world was was Sam Walton. The second richest man was Bill Gates. And when Sam Walton died, he divided his fortune up between his wife and his 3 children. His 4 children. His wife and his 4 children. And the wealth changed then so that Bill Gates became the richest man in America. Sam Walton's wife and children became numbers 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. All right. Votes. That's what Mr. Trump and Mr. Biden are doing right now. The president of the United States is the most powerful man in the world. We have an incredible military. We have the largest economy in the world. China was chasing us, but fell a bit behind there. It is stunning how powerful the president of the United States is. The only way to get that position, or mayor of Brookfield, governor of Wisconsin, is votes. If Governor Evers went over to a penitentiary over at Waupun and said, let a prisoner out, they would let a prisoner out because he has the power to pardon a state prisoner. He can't go to a federal prison, but a state prisoner, he's the governor of the state, he could do that. Let's suppose that one of you guys went over to a federal prison and said, hey, or went over to a state prison and said, let a prisoner out. They would not do it because you're not a governor. It was the voting that gave Governor Evers the power to do things. All right, you put these two together, wealth and votes, because anyone can get them. That's what makes the United States the land of opportunity. Over in Europe, the peasants, who were the majority of people, couldn't really get wealth and they couldn't get votes. That's not their government system. So come over here, they could be anything. Stay over there, people could just be what they were born to be. Force, there is a third source of power, but it is not legitimate. Okay, that was my taking somebody's pencil case away. That's not legitimate in the United States. If you were to ask the chubby little guy over there in North Korea if it was okay for him to kill people and put people in concentration camps if they don't do what he says, he'd say, yeah, that's fine. That's a dictatorship. That's not good. We don't accept that over here. All right, the third theme is religion, which is one's insights into morality and immortality. Okay, big words, mondo words. Here we go. Let's get some more notes. One's insight, that means how one understands morality. Morality is simple. What's right and what's wrong. Morality, what's right and what's wrong. And immortality? Immortality is living forever. Religions all teach that some part of you, some essence, your soul, will live past the death of your body. The second theme, let me run back to religion there again. The last theme is land, and land includes water and natural resources. Now, you have the red line on there is the Mississippi River, and that is really important for transportation, for watering fields. It's a very important piece of land. And that, suppose somebody had the city of New Orleans down at the bottom and could put like a cork in the bottom of that river. it would be worth far less to the country that owned it. That's why land has motivated people to do things throughout history. It has had people fight wars to get control of something vital, like the port at New Orleans. Land will include natural resources like oil, gold, coal, all kinds of things. Let me run back up here to religion. An example of religion, I've got the Crusades over there. A series of wars fought from about 1100 to 1300 between the Muslim Knights of the Middle East and the Christian Knights of Europe. And the interesting part was each side called the other infidels. Infidels means non-believers, because each side said they had the right religion and the other people were wrong, and that was the reason to fight. If you go back to power, you have the ability to build these enormous fortunes and change laws and just all kinds of things based on the wealth. And of course, the votes gives the people that important powers, vetoing laws, pardoning people from prison sentences, suggesting budgets, those kinds of things. Very, very important. All right, I'm going to be asking you on every test but two and on both exams to give me an example of land, an example of power, and an example of religion from the material we talked about for that test. You can't start talking to me about Nazis. You can't start talking to me about Star Wars. It has to be real. It has to be from history, and it has to be from the section we studied. Here's the key. Your answer has to say a specific person or persons doing a specific action motivated by land, motivated by power, or motivated by religion to do that action. Okay, so we are actually going to mention the Crusades a little bit. So you have one, you have religion already. If you wrote down the answer and said an example of religion as a theme is the Crusades, you would not be correct. You need to list specific person or persons. Now, if you said the Muslim Knights of the Middle East fought the Crusades, you have to have a specific action, fought the Crusades for their religion. That would be 100% correct. If you said the Christian Knights of Europe fought the Crusades, again, specific people, specific action for their religion, that would be 100% correct. And no multiple guesses. You can't give me three answers and hope you have one of them correct so you get all the points. All right, tiny people, that's it for the first day. I hope you had 6 different kinds of fun doing this, and I hope I can get into class with you really soon. And remember, most importantly, why you are here, for my entertainment. Hasta la vista, babies.